Banana Purchase, that's a name.
You need to really get off my balls, okay? I'm gonna kick your ass.
Also, why was Michelangelo so stinky? Ew.
Everyone, welcome to a very special edition of AYCH Xtra. I'll be your host today, Patrick, and joining me today, give a warm AYCH welcome to Chris. How are you doing today, Chris?
Good. Long-time listener, first-time caller, I guess.
Well, so glad you can join us, and thank you for supporting the show for all this time, being a regular listener and supporter of the program. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I've been listening for so long. There's a episode early on, like before you were even on there, where the lads talk about everybody throwing up and pooping in like elementary school. That is like one of the most transcendent pieces of art I've ever listened to. It's like episode, I feel like it's like 17 or something. Anybody new to the show, go back to the backlogs. Find the one where they talk about the poop and the puke and the pee.
I mean, I know for our show, that's kind of like, what episode is that? It's all about puke, piss, and pee. But I think that's episode 17, like you said, back to school stories, where it's just exclusively about just like violent bathroom problems.
Yeah, pause this new episode, go back to that one, and then this will be like a companion piece. We won't talk about poop or anything, but you'll just, it's like a flashback, and then we're here, and what this has become, where I'm finally on here to get to mention it.
It's very appropriate because we are talking about a blast from the past today, and Chris and I will be discussing Power Rangers Once and Always, which is the 30th anniversary special of not only the Mighty Morphin season of Power Rangers, but also just the franchise in general. And this was released Wednesday, April 19th on Netflix, and I would say a pretty big acclaim. It's the last time I checked, it was like number 3 in the top 10 of U.S. Netflix.
Yeah, I saw last night it was in like number 9 in movies or something like that on there. It like scrolled past on the screensaver thing, which I was kind of surprised about, because like you assume like Power Rangers was popular, but you never know what people are going to check out on there. So, and it's all been kind of trending on the internet too, pretty aggressively for like the last, I guess, coming up on a week here soon. What was it? It was Wednesday, so like 5-ish days. Yeah, so. Yeah,
because we're recording this on April 23rd, so it's been a few days. And at least from my little window into Tokusatsu Power Rangers Twitter, it's been very positive and very supportive in terms of the special.
Yeah, more positive than I thought. I don't like follow a lot of stuff on there, but I know, good Lord, I don't know what that sound came through. Don't know what that was. But people in like the Toku like realm get really negative really quickly that I've seen, and this one there's not a lot of infighting. So that's pretty sick. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see people like enjoying something, because I've like on both the wrestling side and the Toku side of Twitter. So it's just me like head down every day, just being like, can we just like something and not have like a controversy? That'd be so sick.
It's like number of days without controversy on wrestling and Toku Twitter, 0. The day never goes by without some sort of clash. But like I said, it's been really positive from my end, and just personally speaking, I was pretty pleased with the special too. Like, I had a smile on my face the whole time from beginning to end.
Yeah, I got weirdly emotional watching it, I think, because like, one, I was like in kindergarten when Power Rangers started, so like I'm him, like I'm the one they made it for. Like, I'm that demographic. I'm the guy. So, getting to this point and like thinking about how I've been watching like people do spin kicks for 30 years and how like they've grown up and I've grown up like watching it. It's pretty crazy. It felt nuts. And then the fact that they kind of went like I'd say like PG like 11 with it. Like they didn't quite eke up to 13, but they walked up to it a little bit with the act, which we'll get more into, but just with almost like the tone and the melodrama and the action. It was kind of surprising, and it felt like I saw someone online kind of refer to, which we can get into more in a minute. I don't want to jump the gun, but how Billy treats Trini's daughter Min with like he wants her to handle things in an adult way, and Zach kind of wants to keep her a kid, and how that's kind of the like how the special runs, because it's like, well, this still should be for children because it's Power Rangers, but we also want to handle it in a way that adults can still enjoy it because this was also for them with the 30th anniversary. I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it. And that's really how it played out. Just in general, like it's goofy, it's Power Rangers, but there was like a gray to it, I guess, you know, a little cloud cover over the whole thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because they very much strike that tone of like this is very cheesy with the dialogue and like the plot, like, you know, like original 90s Power Rangers, but it definitely has a maturity in terms of like, you know, dealing with death and like a very like a more violent version of their villains that they've had up to this point in just a regular TV series. And I think for me, they had a very nice balance between that too. And just for anyone else who's listening who may not have seen the special, we will be talking in full spoilers about this. And just a quick summary, this is, like I said, the 30th anniversary of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it features several returning actors: David Yost, Walter Jones, Steve Cardenas, Catherine Sutherland, along with Barbara Goodson, Karen Ashley, Johnny Young Bosch, and Richard Horvitz, all from, you know, the first 3 seasons of the show. And it's about Billy dealing with the recently returned Rita Repulsa in an android body, and how her return results in the death of an original Power Ranger, Trini, and how Trini's daughter, Min, gets involved with sort of taking justice for the death of her mother. And right away, even though I knew that was the plot of the special, it's still very jarring when, you know, Trini's character is like killed on screen by a robot, Rita Repulsa.
Yeah, I felt like they were gonna be like, okay, maybe she falls off the cliff, you don't see her, but they just straight up blow her up. It's kind of crazy. Like she gets zapped, and it's just an explosion, and she's gone. And I guess it's the most Power Rangers way you can possibly handle like a real life actor's death, especially 20 plus years after the fact.
Yeah, because Tui Trang, she died in 2001, and, you know, and I wasn't sure, like, because, like, how do you address something like that and like have, like, you know, like a visceral death? Apparently, that seems supposed to be a little bit more, I guess, graphic, where the camera would pan over the cliff to see like Trini's body like laying into rocks and rubble.
Yeah, that I saw something about that, and which I think they did like something like, so the Pink Ranger that's supposed to be Kimberly at the time, there's like this really effective moment where she like drops to her knees, and it isn't like a, oh my gosh, it's like a I'm going to throw up grief, which I thought was really interesting to have had like a Power Ranger suit actor go that far, as it's like panning out and you're staring at them over the cliff as everybody else is in like disbelief. And it's also kind of true to the character and also the actor, because had Amy Jo Johnson showed up for it, she was always like the Ranger that was still trying to act her ass off. Like when you watch original Power Rangers, you can tell which one's like going for the career afterwards. And she's very clearly like the professional, while everybody else is like kind of, I don't want to say lucked into it, but it was just like they all kind of lucked into it, because who would have known it was a cultural phenomenon before they got in there. But yeah, she was the I'm going for it. And so it was nice that the suit actress in this, since Amy Jo couldn't be a part of it for whatever reason she decided, that they kind of honored that in how they acted out that scene. So that was pretty cool.
I do know that's of like the various like little notes people have made. People were very appreciative of the suit actress for Kimberly, because like if you remember when the dinosaurs were destroyed in the end of the second season, like Kimberly's character like has like this big dramatic like no, as she rushes forward, they have to like hold her back as the Zords are being like obliterated by like the evil villain. So it's very much in line with that character. And I would say, just for like the returning actors, the most surprising thing is like David Yost and Walter Jones. This is the first time they returned to the franchise since they left their initial run of the show. And for like pretty valid reasons, because Walter Jones left over them not being paid enough, and David Yost left from like homophobia on the set, and for him to come back and be sort of the guiding like roles for the show, it's like it really shows like how much the franchise and them have common over the years. And there's a real like, I would say, sincerity to the performance, especially Walter Jones, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and it's weird to think, because Billy did last so long. He was there up through. When did he take off? Zeo? Yeah, I think so. I was trying to remember if he was in Turbo at all, but I don't believe he was. I think it's just Zeo. But it's crazy to think that Walter hasn't been involved since season 2, when they left like a quarter of the way through the season, I think. Which is
for the Peace Summit.
Yeah, as an adult, those episodes are incredibly jarring. Because as a kid you don't really pay attention, but now you watch it and they have like, they only show them in the suits or like from behind and stuff like that, or like stock images of them like staring up at Zordon. And whoever tried to do Austin St. John's voice in the fight scenes was way off, which also weirdly they used audio from older Power Rangers stuff for everyone but him in this special. It sounded like I heard somebody say later on, when they do something in his like second scene on screen, that you can hear his voice, but in that like first fight scene where Trini dies, it does not. It's like, it's definitely not him. I don't know where they pulled the audio from or who they got to do it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because there was a lot of like archival audio used for the characters whose actors couldn't be there, like Jason David Frank, who had sadly passed, Amy Jo Johnson, who passed for personal reasons, and Austin St. John. And so like I know there was like in some places like I would say fairly good audio like snippets. Of course, they kind of have to play with the fact these key people aren't there, but those bits aside from like maybe Austin's sounded, hey, that was pretty crisp for like a 30-year-old audio clip.
Oh yeah, especially the Trini audio, and it's like you can kind of. I couldn't place, like in my mind as I was watching it, which specific episode it is, because I just have like 30 years of unnecessary like knowledge of all pop culture shoved in my brain, but like I recognized it all. And I assumed that's what they were going to do in the first place. It worked out really well. It's a bummer that they couldn't get everybody. But I don't think it takes away from anything, which I know certain people kind of, feel like it does, that it wasn't all the original cast, and then you have people stepping in for the first time in it's like 30th anniversary. This is probably the first time somebody's watched it in 29 years, and they're like, yo, where's Kimberly, who's the blonde girl? So and then it's like I appreciate sorry if you hear a loud neighbor driving through the neighborhood. I appreciated that they kind of did the like 2021 Dune version of this special, where they're like, we're not really going to explain anything if you didn't watch 6 or 7 seasons of this, so just assume that like we know what's going on and you just have fun. Where like Dune is the movie where it's like, yeah, I don't know, read the book, enjoy what you're watching, take it at face value. I appreciated that they did that with this special.
Because I think the reason why there's not a lot of explanations for some of the things that happen is that I think they correctly assumed that the people who are watching, a lot of people who are watching the 30th anniversary, they already know a lot of the lore and like the details from, the last 30 years. I mean, me, myself included, my hand is raised, like, and I was pretty satisfied with like how they address certain points in the special, like how that for the first time in the show's history did they specifically mention the Z-Wave, the moment in space season where Zordon sacrificed himself, sends his energy out to destroy all the nearby villains, and that was never given an official name. That was always just like a fandom term, and they used that specific line in the show, and just like it's just steeped in Easter eggs. And how Rita's return, when Z-Wave hit her, it sponged all her evil, but she was still left alive, and that evil essence was gathered when Billy tried to resurrect Zordon, and that evil energy possessed an alpha droid and made her into the evil. And like, it was a pretty succinct explanation for what it was, and like, okay, that makes sense. If you know the series lore, okay, that's probably as good as I was expecting.
Yeah, I while I was watching the special, I was like, I wonder if they're going to explain it, or if they're just going to be like, okay, we're just here now, Rita's a robot. And then they went to that flashback scene, and I'm like, okay, thanks, that's all I needed. We're good. Everything else in the whole thing, I was fine with. I was like, okay, that was my only like, we gonna figure this out, because it's been like close to 30 minutes in a 50-minute special, so can you tell me something? And they did that, and I was like, okay, cool. Explanation works for me. This isn't, I mean, it's Power Rangers still. It's not going to be like, it's not King Lear,
Yeah. Because, like, I know obviously with all the fans, like, there's going to be some that's like, why is it, like, this 30-year-long children's program have, like, the tightest continuity? And it's like, well, because you said it yourself, this is a children's show that's been running for 30 years. And, of course, you're going to have, like, a thorough line, but there's just not going to be that sort of like heavy internal continuity. And sometimes you can give the fans too much, and that can hurt a program too.
Yeah, you never want to lean too far into letting someone else steer the ship. You know what I mean? Especially like people who are just there to enjoy it. I think that's a problem that I'm not going to get into like a full discussion on the Power Rangers 30th anniversary special. But I think that's like a problem with like all art currently, where it's like giving the consumer the pencil, if you will, to write everything, instead of telling the story and allowing them to like it or not. And I think sometimes we don't lean enough into respecting fans, and sometimes we lean too much into giving fans too much of what they dictate. And I think this kind of did a pretty good job of walking that line for a nostalgia special.
Yeah. And I like plenty of just like, oh yeah, like when they had like the Rad Bug 2 and or like and like the new command center, the new Alpha, and like when Catherine plays Cat said, referred to the line, too much pink energy is dangerous, like all these like little like bits, like it felt really good. Okay, so this is to me the right amount of fan service.
Yeah, I appreciated also that like it kept the world feeling like it was lived in. Like we haven't seen Angel Grove in a while, but it felt like Angel Grove was still like it became what Angel Grove would become in like 30 years. Like
yeah.
I thought it was sick that they still use the command center as like, because like how do you explain a building sitting out in the middle of nowhere, especially when there's nobody to keep up some sort of like invisibility shield or something over it. So being like, okay, yeah, well, this is my tech industry building was a smart move in terms of like,
and I like.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. No, I also like enjoyed how what these characters became in the 30 years, like using Zach going away for a peace conference, like he became a congressman, and Billy becoming like this tech tycoon, and basically reformatted the command center to be like his, like Apple headquarters type thing, and even the ones that didn't have like, I guess lofty careers, like Rocky became a firefighter. I guess Kat was just like, she's just a regular civilian mother now, and it's like it's nice to see like they've had lives outside of just fighting aliens and robots. That they had relatively normal lives after all that.
Yeah, and I thought it was cool with Kat specifically. They kept to the comic book canon of her being like she married Tommy and they have a child. What is it? I can't remember if that like one
JJ.
Yeah, his name's JJ. What's the comic? Is it Wrath of the Dragon or something like that? It's
Soul of the Dragon.
Soul of the Dragon. That makes more sense. I don't know why he would feel wrath. Yeah, so like that, I thought that was cool that because it's well before he's old enough to have done what's done in the comic, but that they like foreshadowed that in this, and we're like, yeah, we're trying to keep these things kind of together as best we can in terms of like storytelling. So I thought that was pretty cool. Also, Walter Jones does not look like he's aged at all. Like just barely. Like he looks like he's aged maybe like 7-8 years instead of 30. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like they kept him in like an icebox because he looks very little different from like 1993, and like when he did his hip hop keto and like the Angel Grove juice bar fight scene, it's like Walter still got it.
That fight was sick, like legitimately, like more so than just like a oh good, this is kind of a fun Power Rangers fight. Like the stuff he was pulling off looked good. The head scissors, I don't know if he did it or a stunt. I assume it was a stunt person, but the little head scissors bit was really awesome. Also, the putties were violent. Like they threw a woman off of a building at one point. That was the one of the most shocking moments to me. They had to like save her. I was like, they weren't doing this before. They've been fed up for like sitting in like dormant for like 30 years or probably like 20, 28, 27 years themselves. They're ready to like whoop ass, I guess. They've had it.
Yeah, because I mean, it makes sense if you think like since Rita is now like literally evil personified as all the evil essence of Rita in a robot body. So, and she's like immediately, I'm going to kill you. Like they never said the word kill in the original show, and like it's like right away she's like more aggressive, more evil, more violent, and it would make sense that her minions would be reflected in that. And how like vicious they were. Yeah,
because they're like molded, right? They don't really have a mind of their own. I wish that there was some sort of like Robo Finster I wish they had like done something with that too. If she could have figured out how to like make, because she has like the monsters. If they could have brought back Finster or something, that would have been sick. Just have him like tinkering away. That's maybe like my one. I wish they would have done something with him, just because he's also one of the coolest designs in history to me in all of like tokusatsu and like just like pop culture entire. I think he's so sick looking, just like this little feathered goblin fella.
It was like with twigs growing off his fingers.
Yeah.
And for the toy collectors out there, the Lightning Collection version of Finster is like insanely detailed with all these little tiny props.
I don't know if it's on camera. It's like behind me in the corner. It may be my favorite of the Lightning Collection of all of them, which is an Amazon exclusive. So if you didn't know it existed and you're looking for it, I'm sure it's on there. It's like $25. If it's the one toy you own of the villains, it's the one that's worth buying the most because it's so awesome.
And part of me wonders if Finster, if you're going by like the comic, if he was turned good, because he was never really that evil in the story. But I think in the Soul of the Dragon comic, he was like purified by the Z Wave, so he was
that's
good
right
as well. So, but I guess if like evil, if Rita's evil got could put him maybe like the little tiny evil that was in Finster could be like roboticized. I was curious for the decision for her like big monsters like Snizzard and Minotaur. Like they're a classic monsters, but they're, when I think of like of the capital C classic first season of Power Rangers monsters, they don't jump to mind.
No, you would think they would have done Pudgy Pig, like a robot Pudgy Pig. That feels like, yeah. I mean, they went to the well on that character twice, because the first time I ever saw Power Rangers was in kindergarten. It was the second Pudgy Pig episode. So like,
yeah,
they liked him enough to like use him for 2 full episodes in like a first season run. So it is really strange. I don't know if it's some sort of like action figure synergy, because they had already released Snizzard, but they already had Pudgy Pig out. And then it was either this week or, it was this week, they announced the Rita figure and the Minotaur figure. And the Minotaur figure's been, I believe, leaked. If not who he was, just that there was a monster for that wave coming. For maybe before they even were like shooting the special. I may be wrong on that. I can't keep up with when, but it's been announced for a long time, because it was supposed to come in a wave with the Wild Force Red figure, and everybody was like curious how they were gonna dance around that with like a head sculpt, but I think that I think that figure got canceled, and they probably won't do a head sculpt when they finally release it, just for like suit character, like get everybody out reasons if they make it that far.
Yeah, because there's definitely some other Ranger actors that wouldn't be coming back for many different reasons.
Yeah, at least a handful. So, but yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really strange, because like, and especially if you're doing because the whole thing was kind of like a memorial to Trini in general, and she had that like iconic episode against, I can't remember the monster's name, but he's the skeleton with the hat that he would like follow. So you think maybe they would do a robo version of that, just to kind of like call back to that, just to add a little bit more. But yeah, those two just are not. I can think of so many, like if you go Power Rangers monster, there's like at least like 10 maybe that I would think before I'd even come across those two in my head. So,
and I'm not even counting like Rita's like minions, like Goldar, Squat, Babu, Scorpina. Although if Scorpina came back, I would have done about 10 flips.
Oh yeah, that would have been so awesome.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of my discussion of the Once and Always Power Rangers special with my guest Chris, and we're just gonna get back to action, to borrow a phrase from the series. to get back into some of the details of the show, you talked about the putties being more violent, and I was really impressed by like how violent the Rangers would get sometimes, and especially in the third act battle with Robo Rita in Bandora Palace on the moon.
Yeah, they that I think when we talked about it, when we were messaging about it, that was like the thing that stood out to me immediately, was just like how it, because they were like, well, she's a robot, so they can get away with it a little more than like, they honestly went like X Games mode with the violence. Specific, there's a point where Billy ran her through with his power lance, where it's like you see her and then you see it just like go up through her chest, and I was like, well, that's new for Power Rangers. Like that was the first like, oh, okay moment. That, and then when Trini's daughter Min throws the daggers and like pins Rita up against the wall, and then Zach just uses the cannon for like probably effectively the first real time in, I know he's like shot it before, but this was like the first time where it's like, oh yeah, he has a cannon axe that he's actually using here, and it was like incredibly violent there, even to the point where Rocky like dives and stabs, I guess it was Minotaur, I can't remember.
Yeah, because
Snizzard was the one
like
that
the Megazord monster.
Okay, I couldn't remember my. Yeah, so he stabs Minotaur when he's on the ground, and he does like a diving like jab down, and Kat even goes, "Man, Rocky, that was pretty hardcore." So they even kind of acknowledge it at least.
And like I was ready for like, you know, when they were just going ham in that last action sequence, like, is Kat gonna just like no scope somebody, shoot like arrow through the head or something? Like I was kind of expecting like they were gonna go crazy, and for what they did, they went all out. And one scene I love with Min, who sort of at this point has, you know, been officially chosen as the new Yellow Ranger, when she does the move where all the putties are around her, but she does like the reaching back and over and like swipes them all with her dagger. That was a really great move.
Yeah, I thought that looked awesome. I'm almost surprised they didn't like decapitate a putty, where like they just like hit it and it like the head pops off into like the clay, like the digital clay that they did this time around.
Yeah.
At the rate they were going, I'm really surprised they didn't pull something like that off, because it was just so aggressive. It was sick. I enjoyed it. But not like too much to where like a kid can't handle it, you know what I mean? So that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like if a little kid was watching this with their Power Rangers parent, it'd be like, that was sick, that was awesome. And like if I saw that at 10 years old, I'd be hitting the ceiling.
Yeah, all I wanted at that age was to watch people kick people and to watch swords. So that would have been like right up my alley. Because like,
yeah,
I when I was young, that's all I was searching for, was just like martial arts and swords and sorcery, and Power Rangers kind of melding those up to like a certain degree was like cool. Yeah, that there were a lot of like they did a lot of like out of suit fighting, which I thought was interesting. Especially because I know for Dino Fury, they kind of talked about how that was not fun to choreograph for them, like having to figure out how to shoot them out of suit fighting stuff. So I thought it was pretty interesting that they like went for it in this special with the with like these people haven't done this in a long time, you know what I mean? And like a whole point of the plot was that they couldn't morph because they could get tracked, so they had to be out of those suits whipping ass. And that was really most of it, honestly. They would like jump in and out of like morphing in their suits, but it seemed like they probably spent more time fighting out of them, especially in like any real significant way, than in the suits.
Yeah, because like I said, they had that built-in plot explanation that Rita, since she's using the energy from captured Power Rangers to power a machine to go back in time to essentially kill the Rangers, literally while they're sleeping in bed, I'll kill you. Like, just like, oh, wow, Rita, go off. And because she's using Ranger energy to kind of trap them, they walk around in civilian form a lot to avoid being detected. And I will say, probably the difference between any other reunion specials is probably there's only like essentially 4 or 5 main like combatants. So I'm sure that's easy to choreograph in like the number of bodies they had for like the Dino Fury reunion, and especially Dimensions in Danger.
Yeah. And one thing we're kind of forgetting to talk about is that the major plot point for this is that Rita was like trapping Rangers she was like shrinking them down through Snizzard's new abilities, I guess, where and then hooking them up to this device that you later figure out is a time travel device, so she can go tell Rita on like the day of the dumpster, if you will, that like basically give her intel, be like, this is what happens, don't let it happen again.
Yeah.
Which is why them morphing was such an issue, because they could find them, and in another like Hasbro synergy moment, they have like all these little action figures hooked up to the machine on this little like display shelf that like that's what's happened to them all. They've all been shrunk and they're all getting like their life sapped out of them, I guess, to make a time portal. So you see like all sorts of Rangers. I honestly half expected them to show other Rangers like out somewhere instead of just talk about them, because they had so many captured. I wonder if they left that open in case they want to do any sort of future reunion stuff where they're like, oh yeah, this happened at this time, and here's what happened, and here's how we got to where we are now, with like this Lost Galaxy Ranger, or just whoever. I can't remember all the ones that they had on the shelf.
They had a nice, I guess, array. They had, since Jason, Tommy, and Kim were captured from the originals, so they had Zeo, Lost Galaxy, Wild Force, I think maybe Magda Defender, but they're literally the Hasbro Lightning Collection figures, and obviously that kind of goes in part with their emulating like a lower budget TV show, and I just remember when Finster would have like the proto monster, they would be like action figure size, like wiggling around in his hand before they put him into the monster machine to make him real.
Yeah, that was always my favorite part, especially on the early stuff, where it's just like a little like moving clay monster, like the arms go up and down, because it felt like, obviously it's cheesy, but it kind of like gives life to this world of like Power Rangers more than like, that's the type of shit that sparks your imagination. Like, you can watch anybody get in a suit and kick people. They've made like billions of dollars off of it with for Disney right now, but when you watch something like that and you see the heroes, but then you see the little like goblin guy, and he's got this little clay toy that moves and it becomes a monster, that's when your brain starts going, oh, this is interesting. Like, that's always the stuff that got me into things. Like, you watch a movie like The Labyrinth and you see the little like goofy caterpillar character, and you're like, I want to know more about that stuff. I want to know more about the little clay monsters that Finster's making. Everything else is like, it's like what you expect. And then that's where I feel like that's where you start to get kind of a creative mind as a young person when you see these things. And so that's what I always appreciated about Power Rangers, is it kind of in those moments opened up like this creative like part of my brain that like other stuff that's probably like honestly done more damage than good over the years, because I can't do math, but I can think about all this stuff. That's what kept me like interested in the world I occupy and worlds that I could create, is the little things like that. So like,
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, so maybe a kid seeing like, oh, they shrunk this person and it's kind of like my action figure. Maybe that kind of gets them in that creative space too, where they're like, it's a tiny Power Ranger stuck on a shelf. You know what I mean? It's not just like all the regular stuff that you see in everything else, like right in front of your face all the time. It's the little moments.
And like you said, like especially with the original series, when they're taking like the original Sentai footage, there's just so much little detail and that's not really expounded upon, but it's just eye catching enough. Like, I want to know more. Like, like what goes on inside Rita's castle, what goes on in the command center. Like, you're given just enough to wonder about, and like especially when things like you have toys and a show like this that really just engender that imaginative speculation. I feel like that's very important for kids, and I think there's a line toward the end of the special where like Morphing Grid, it has limitless possibilities, and like to me the Morphing Grid is just like imagination energy, at least in my interpretation of it, because there's no set parameters for it, not hard rules anyway, and like you can just kind of do whatever you need to make the story happen.
Yeah, and because you get that and you go, oh, I wonder what happens in Rita's palace, you come up with it, you know what I mean, in your head. And as a kid, that's like the best thing. Like, that's all I cared about, like playing with my action figures and like coming up with something. And it's just like Star Wars. You go into a cantina, you see 1 million characters. You don't have to tell me who all the 1 million characters are. Just like give me a taste. Maybe you can give me a name in some sort of book later that I can see when I'm like 8 or 9. And then I think a lot of like world building stuff is that people do now is a little bit of a detriment to imagination, in terms of like, you don't have to fill every space. Just give people a little bit of it. And I think Power Rangers kind of was good about that, especially in like the earlier seasons. And like, here's this thing that's like this gyro thing that's spinning in the background. What does that do? And then you're like, okay, well, I've made up in my head what that does. And now I'm like, what does Rita do on Tuesday? You know what I mean? when it's not on screen, what are they up to? Like, where's the bathroom? You know what I mean?
Yeah. For me, I always wondered, like, what happened when, she threw her wand to Earth from the moon and it made the monster big, but when she inevitably lost, it's like, who goes to get it?
I thought about that, and I was like, it's probably some, like, magic, like, dissipates and pops back into her hand sort of thing. But it did seem, like, pretty impractical, just to be like, at least Zed had those bombs. Like, he's just going to make more of them. Let's just keep chucking them. But yeah, she had to get her staff back every time. And it's like, does she send Squat and Babu to like dejectedly like have to go grab it? Could the Power Rangers at any time have gone over and been like, oh, I got it now. Can't do this no more. So
it's just like, oh shit, I never thought about it. Because like, I guess at a certain point I was like, my headcanon was like you said, Goldar or Squat Babu, who just like, it's like, you stupid idiot, go get my stick. And he's like, flies hours to Earth, he picks it up and flies back, and she's just sitting there like tapping her foot, like waiting on him to get back.
Yeah, that's why it takes a week for them to do anything, because she's got to reset every time, because she's got to send them on the trek for her staff. It's like finding the Dragon Balls. You gotta go through all the trouble of flying halfway across the world to get it. But yeah, I just in general, I really like this special. I was planning on giving it another watch last night, actually, to prep for this, and just because I thought it was sick and I wanted to see it again. But
yeah,
in the South right now, I don't know if anybody listening is aware of this, but allergies are really terrible. And
yeah,
I was down for the count, so I was like getting ready to turn it on. I was just like out cold. But yeah, another thing I appreciated about the special was the kind of relationship that everybody seemingly like kept up with each other. Like, it seemed like they didn't see each other all the time, but they probably talked regularly.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably true to life for some of them because of the like Comic-Con circuit and stuff like that. So it's probably a little easier for them to like jump back in that role and talk to each other because they probably do see each other more often than not. But also the relationship between Zach and Min, because he became like her guardian.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that part of it. I thought it was like, because they always kind of have like a they like pushed a like Zach and Trini narrative later on. I don't remember if they did it on TV. I know they've done it in like, or maybe I'm making that up in headcanon. But like, I feel like there was a point where it was kind of like they teased Trini and Billy being close, and then they moved away from that, and it was like Zach and Trini spent more time with each other. But I might be making that up because I know in the comics they kind of do a Trini Jason thing. But it was nice to see that he took over that role of like, okay, I'm gonna step in and care for my friend's daughter and try and raise her. And then she's like resentful of Billy because he accidentally caused Rita to come back and like blamed him for her mother's death in the special. So that was also interesting to see, like, because they don't really touch on heavy stuff like that in Power Rangers anyways. Like, there's kind of some, I mean, there's like girl accidentally starts the apocalypse because she just wanted to go outside because she was experimented on or whatever.
Yeah.
That's about as heavy as they get, just into the world stuff, not interpersonal drama, unless it's like a Dear John letter episode.
Because I do think it's very appropriate that once again that David and Walter were sort of the pillars of this special, because Billy and Trini's character had been so close, and like Walter was, to me, he kind of felt like he was a lot of ways the heart of the team in different moments, and it really shows through here. And like I just really appreciated like the sincerity that came from it. Like I loved how immediately paternal Zach became with Min, and how they gave Min's space in the special to feel like that righteous indignation. Like she has a reason to be angry at them for one being secretive and like their exploits being a resulting in her mother's death, and them not like making Min to be the bad guy. Yeah, she's young and she's kind of like acting out in brash ways, but at the end they still acknowledge that the things she's feeling are, she's right to feel those.
Yeah, and even Billy kind of acknowledged it. Like he beats himself up, and in the special, it's like he feels bad, but he also doesn't like sit there and let like the words of a grieving teenager like derail him, which I think a lot of other stories might do. He's just like, yeah, I screwed up. It sucks. I feel bad. She's going to feel what she's going to feel. I hope she forgives me. Which I thought was interesting because they just didn't like swing so aggressively that like pity party way. He was just like, he kept moving forward. Like, we got to figure this out. We're going to figure this out, whether this teenager forgives me or not. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Because they still have to stop this evil robot witch, and, he can't, kind of like sit in his like gloom corner and be like, woe is me, I ended the world. Like, we still have to get up and fight this. And I really appreciate him working through his grief and his, failure and to sort of make a resolution. And I loved like their call to action was the Bandora protocol, the nod to the Sentai, and just like basically like this big bat signal sends out to all the Rangers. And when they're going through the screen on the command center, you see like all these other places that the series has happened, like Turtle Cove, Astro Mega Ship, and like to show like even Power Rangers are still active doing their things even when, you know, their seasons have ended.
Yeah. And they just did a lot of nods to people from the past. I wish there had been more Bulk and Skull involvement, but I liked the like quick nod to them, like they're still at it, still bros doing what they do, because they've appeared more than most of these actors have at this point in the series.
Yeah.
And then having the juice bar still around was awesome. Someone mentioned this is like one of those, like, I wish they had done it too, because I kind of looked around for it, but like a plaque with Ernie on it maybe, just because he's another actor that had passed that was part of it. I thought that would have been nice just to acknowledge like, but maybe canonically they were like, Ernie's still around. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Sorry, I dropped my phone.
That's true.
Hopefully that didn't pick up. But yeah.
No, I think it'd be fine.
But yeah, I liked all the little nods and stuff like that. I just thought the special was... It made me feel emotional because of the passing of time. And then just like... an actress that never really got her like full chance, kind of getting a whole special made in her honor. And then they did that tribute at the end to everybody that wasn't there and who's passed away and stuff like that, which like I knew they were going to do something like that, but I completely forgot about that scene of Kimberly singing with the guitar and them all sitting around with each other. So I was like, oh yeah, this is incredibly effective. I wish they had done like suit acting for the Megazord scene. I didn't think it looked bad though. I thought it didn't look good by like a lot of like but it was like a specific level of charming, and even the way that they killed Snizzard with the Megazord was a little bit more over the top than normal, with like the way they slashed him and kind of like dove over him, and like I don't know, whoever was choreographing this one was like, yeah, I'm gonna have a good time with Power Rangers this month.
Yeah, because I know that was like a smaller criticism people had, because the suit for the Megazord, I don't know what condition like a suit would have for the Megazord would have been in, or like what the logistics was to get that back. But I wasn't like bothered by the CG in it. I mean, we saw how the CG Ninja Megazord from the Power Rangers movie, and I was kind of hoping that AYCH would have been a part of the team in certain ways. Like she was just like, "Where's the nut kit bucket?"
Yeah.
That kills bad guys instantly. Just kick them in the nuts. But I thought how they CG the Dinozords, and how they basically they were reenacting the how they were summoned in the original series, like pretty closely. I was half expecting when the Pterodactyl Zord to come out that it would hit the tree on the way out like it did in the original, but it's like I guess they didn't do that. But that would have been like that would have pushed it over the top for me. But I thought it looked fun.
Have you ever seen the clip from I don't remember which episode it is, but it's a Megazord scene, and the footage that they used, I don't know if it was like intentional that they got sent this or what, but there's like a little boy sitting in the foreground as the Megazord is like doing something, and he just kind of like turns like a little like Japanese child, and like you can kind of see his head for a second where he's turned, and then it like cuts away. Like I don't know if they accidentally sent them like cut footage for the episode or what, but there's a Power Rangers episode out there. I'll find it later. I'll send it to you, where like you can see just a child on the set that was like on set that day for Power Rangers during the Megazord battle. Not even for Power Rangers, for Zeo Ranger. It's just
wow. Okay.
It's so awesome. It's so funny. My friend and I have been laughing at it for so long, because it's just like he just like absentmindedly just kind of like turns his head to like look back at the camera, because he's just like sitting in the foreground, just somebody's kid. It is awesome. I wish they had,
No, I didn't know about that.
yeah, I'll find it for you. It's fantastic. But yeah, I didn't mind that. I thought it was funny. Like, I'd have to rewatch it, but it looked like they just used the toys again, and like I don't know if they like digitally animated the toys moving, but they definitely used like the new like Zap Megazord sculpts for the individual Zords. But yeah, I know. Also, they were fighting on the moon. They probably didn't want to build a moon set, so
Yeah.
So that was kind of fine with me.
And plus, I think how that fight was framed was a reference in it itself. Because I think like the Super Nintendo Power Rangers game, there's like the final level is where you fight a monster on the surface of the moon in the Dino Megazord.
Yeah, I think you're fighting Cyclopsis, maybe. I can't remember. That might be it. But yeah, I do think you fight on the moon on that. That game's so sick. That game ruled because you would play like halfway through the level before you morphed. I thought that was so fun. That was always like my favorite part. It's like you got to a certain point and it was like, guess what? It's time for you to morph and finish the level. So it's like there was a point to your progress other than just like a regular beat 'em up. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
I love that game.
And plus, like, it tracks with the show. Like, they fight the putties as people, then they turn into Power Rangers, and then they fight with the Megazord. Like, it's just a natural progression of the story, so it may be reflected in the game.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, as a kid, I was always way more pumped when they were, like, fighting on playgrounds and stuff like that, out of suit, because I was like, I can do that. Like, they're, like... doing like tricks on rollerblades, like trying to like jump through like playground equipment. I'm like, I can do that tomorrow if I wanted. If a space alien showed up, yeah, let me do the same thing. And then when they get in the suits, I'm like, I don't got the suit. Fair play, you got that one.
Yeah, because I do remember one of the benefits of the special is people were just like re-releasing like basically supercuts on Twitter of X actor fighting putties and their civilian forms. Like you saw a lot of like Rocky's fights, Adam's fights, and you kind of went down the list, and like how a lot of them were accomplished martial artists, so they were like really very proficient in what they were doing, and not just Jason David Frank, but like the rest of the cast, and you realize, oh yeah, they're all. Or I wouldn't say all. There's definitely some that were more, this is an actor, we kind of got them to do some punch and kicks, versus like these are martial artists we hired to be actors. But you really see like how creative they were in their fight choreography.
Yeah, and you really can see those putties catch one every once in a while. Like, that they kept in there, like a stiff shot to the chest or something like that. I'm like, oh. So, which also, like, because of my, like, loving violence as a kid, loving martial arts brain, I'm like, heck yeah. Like, I got the same thing from that I would get from like a Jackie Chan stunt, just because it looked sick. I know it's not real, but like there are moments where it was accidentally real, and as I grow up with it, I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like they were throwing a couple of those on accident and caught some people, so. But yeah,
like like Billy or Jason like actually throws a potato and then like just clocks like a stunt guy in a putty outfit. And he's just like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he probably like goes down quicker than he would have in the scene just so he can get a break. He's like, man, that Amy Jo Johnson is just like kicking the shit out of me today.
Well, she just like split kicks and just like knocks two people on their back.
Which I feel... No, it was a suit actor. I was going to say, I feel like I've seen stuff with the stunt people, but I know there's I've watched like behind the scenes stuff for the movies. There's like a very, very buff woman that was like doing a lot of the choreography that like I wouldn't want to get caught by her either. So, rough day at the office.
Yeah, one last little suit actor bit. I really love Robo Rita's suit actor, because she had just a lot of like flourish in her moves when she does like her twirling of her wand. She does like this little bit with her dress. She flings it around, and we haven't touched on it much, but like Barbara Goodson really knocked it out with her return as Rita, like the original English dub voice actress for Rita, and she had a lot of great lines in that. Just a really killer performance.
Yeah, it's almost, you almost forget it, like it felt so like natural and like back and like comforting that you forget that it's been just as long since she's done it, that it's been since some of these Rangers showed up. It's kind of like you hear Goku's voice again, you just assume he's been doing it forever because he has, but she hasn't been this character in however long. And yeah, that was awesome. She and the suit actress or actor, whoever, I don't know, I don't want to misgender anybody, they were killing it. They were like, there was a lot of flair and a lot of like expressiveness that you don't always get from those characters, so that was awesome.
Especially when like Rita was never like the combatant villain, and for her to like take just a personal role and like fighting the Rangers, it's definitely like, you know, just a signal as like how everything is different for this one.
Yeah, that is true. She was never down like in the trenches, so that it is cool to finally see, like, which is probably in my mind, I don't even think about it, but that was probably like as they're writing it, they're like, we're finally gonna have them fight Rita, and yeah, it was great. She was great doing the, like, bringing that character back to life, and then like physically, whoever was in the suit just knocked it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. And one last little bit, they just kind of really just put a cherry on top, is at the end they recreated the original Mighty Morphin intro with like all the new bits from the special.
Yeah. Also, before we have to stop, take another break, the Ron Wasserman soundtrack is what took it from like feeling like somebody was doing a nostalgia special to actually feeling lived in for all these 30 years. It came back to where it's like, okay, we're back in it, because it didn't feel like you were in something different because he composed the tracks for this. So it felt like, you know, you hit the stop button at the end of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers saga, and you waited however many years, and you press start again, and this was just like the final little bit of it, the final 58 minutes or whatever it was of the 6-7 year journey that you went on.
Yeah, cause it really was like incredible who all they were able to get back, and despite how limited the roles may have been, like it was still good to see like all these familiar faces and like sounds and voices. Like there's just all these different pieces working together that just make it feel like this is just such a fun, fulfilling package. At least I would say for the both of us.
Yeah, and who cares about anybody else? If we liked it, that's all that matters. That's why we're doing a podcast.
I mean, honestly, because like I'm from, because it's on Letterboxd and I put in my review, like I'm not going to try to sit here and sell this to anyone who's not like a 30-something Power Rangers fan, because like I know it's probably not going to land for anybody else who's not in that demographic, but I enjoyed it. I watched it in my room on my iPad, and just like I was just giddy. Like this just feels right, and I enjoyed it. And you know, anyone else who's kind of sour on it, you know, that's their opinion. But you know, for me, I was pleased, very much so.
Yeah, same. And there's far worse in the franchise than this special.
Yeah.
I've seen the absolute bottom. So this was actually like shockingly refreshing at how like well and how much detail they actually put into it. Because there have been some darker years and darker episodes. So
we're going to take one more break, and then we'll be right back with the conclusion of our discussion of Once and Always. Be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Part 3, our final portion of the show. We're just going to give up our remaining thoughts and maybe touch about a little bit more on general Power Rangers favorites. And since this was a reunion special, I wanted to ask you before we left, what are some of your other favorite reunion specials from Power Rangers?
So Forever Red is the one that like sticks out to me the most, I think. I get them all confused. I don't remember which one's which. And then what was the reunion during Dino Charge?
Dino Charge. Now you went made me space. I think that was the one that had Austin St. John come back, correct?
Did he come back for that, or
was that Beast Morphers?
See, that's what I can't remember. There was a more recent one that I really enjoyed, and I think it was. I didn't get all the way through Beast Morphers yet, so it had to have been Dino Charge. But I can't. Look, we're old. Like we're taught. Anybody that's listening to this, we really love this stuff. We've been watching it for 30 years, and we can't keep up with any of it. Even like you, we need we need the young brain in between us. That's like, hey, how about you talk about this? And they're like, oh yeah, we need that. Like, we need the Conrad wrestling guy that's like, tell me about this. And we're like, oh yeah, I can recall all that.
Yeah, just like a couple of good old brothers talking about the day and the Power Rangers scene. I do want to take a chance to watch just because of like it's Jason David Frank's last special, Dimensions in Danger from Ninja Steel, where it had like not only his return, the introduction of like a great concept in the Power Rangers franchise. The Master Morpher basically allows him to use all of his Ranger forms, and just like a huge cast of returning Legacy Rangers.
Yeah, I still haven't gotten to that. I forgot that was Ninja Steel that it happened in, which is such a strange season for them to have like pulled that off in. Like thinking back on it, that's one I need to get to. I think Austin St. John came back in Beast Morphers, or it might have been Dino Fury. Did they do a?
Because I know it's based off the Sentai reunion where it had the 3 Dino series at the times, Z Ranger, Abba Ranger, and Kyoryuger. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because it would have been Dino Charge, because Kyoryuger is Dino Charge's Sentai footage counterpart.
Yeah, which I've been. Man, you talk about like the Sentai footage counterparts. I've been going back and forth between watching the 3rd season of Power Rangers and then watching Kaku Ranger. It's like so crazy watching like Rito and how goofy he is, and then watching oh shoot, what's his name? He's like Lord Demon Jr. or something like that, where he's like this guy with a guitar, like he's like playing piano and like playing like punk guitar and like yelling at everybody, and then he turns into the skeleton warrior demon. It's so cool. But just like the like goofy like switch up of that between the two. I'm trying to think of what. So they did Forever Red. They did something. Did they do something during Megaforce or Super Megaforce?
Because Super Megaforce was at least the second season. Super Megaforce was like their version of Gokaiger, where they had the Ranger keys, and they had like each. Well, I didn't see much of it, but they had an episode dedicated to a certain season. Like Casey, who is Jungle Fury Red, came back for an episode, and I forget her name, but she played Lightspeed Pink. She came back, and then they had the Legendary War, which was kind of underwhelming for a lot of people. They had several Rangers come back, like Jason David Frank, Hector David Jr. From Samurai, that TJ from Space, and a lot of them.
That's the one I put out of my mind. That's why I have trouble with because I watched Megaforce and Super Megaforce like on an iPad while I was playing video games, which was probably the best way to watch it because those are kind of rough seasons. But I remember them doing like a big where like multiple people came back, and it kind of like left me cold, and I was like, oh, okay. Because but Forever Red is the one where they bring back the like Shadow Borg from Beetleborgs as the enemy, right? Like they use the
remnants
suit
of
from they use the suit from Beetleborgs as the villain, which was in my opinion so sick, because when else would you see Power Rangers fight that suit? And it's also just really funny to think that somebody like pulled something out of like the costume department and was like, well, what about this one, Terry? You know what I mean? So like and like, while not a reunion, I feel like, me personally, I would regret if I didn't get to talk on a podcast about the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles crossover from In Space.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite things that they ever did, even though Next Mutation is not awesome. Those two episodes were. So that, and even like when they like tried to like kick off Masked Rider and had the like little crossover there. I love that. I like the in-season stuff where they did like the former Rangers showing up for an episode or two that they did for a couple years there, more than I think I like the big like entire series team ups. What was they do it with Time Force with what is it, Lightspeed Rescue
for the Future.
Yeah.
Because they would always have, the previous season, let's say like for Wild Force. Cause I know pretty sure Wild Force teamed up with Lightspeed.
That's what it was.
And then they also teamed up with Time Force.
Yeah, I get the like chronology of like post Lost Galaxy stuff mixed up for a while, but I always like those episodes where you have the former team showing up for whatever reason, and especially when there's like conflict, where like, which one was it? Time Force, where they're like kind of like at odds for a second, or was that a later season? Gosh, I feel so unprepared now that like my 35-year-old brain had to like do any sort of recall on this. I was like, yeah, I'm ready for
it. No, good. I think, just from what we're talking about today, there's definitely seeds for like future Power Ranger discussion. I know when they did Ninja Storm Dino Thunder crossover, like the Ninja Rangers were like under a spell, so they like actively fought each other for a while. And like Time Force and Wild Force was like a great crossover for me, and especially when like you had like certain character interactions that it's like, okay, that's a really cool like little bit right here. Like when Taylor, the kind of no nonsense Yellow Ranger, she like had like this little flirtatious vibe with the Quantum Ranger. It's like, okay, like the first time in my kid head's like, okay, this is a ship. I liked it. I liked their dynamic.
Yeah. I like stuff like that. I wish I almost wish we like got more, like if they like fully brought over some of those movies that they do and just did them as like quick specials, especially now that Netflix has it and the rights to it. But of course Hasbro is moving away from Sentai footage right as like one of the sickest Sentais ever thematically pops up that could probably sell more toys than they would ever imagine. But I think like the full-blown movies would have been really cool to have gotten maybe during like the Disney era of like ownership. But Power Rangers also always kind of like the bastard son. Like it's just kind of like, we own it, we kind of know what to do with it to get some toys out there, but we don't really know. We don't want to like fully put all our energy into it, which is kind of a shame, because it's, here we are 30th anniversary and it's still like pushing figures and driving up, people watching content on Netflix of all things. So
yeah. I know in terms of like one of the bigger like anniversaries, I really have a lot of affection for Once a Ranger, the 15th anniversary special that happened during Operation Overdrive, which is by some a a very middling season, but like that being a very bright spot in it, and which had Johnny Young Bosch come back as Mighty Morphin Black Ranger 2, along with Xander, Mystic Force Green, Bridge, who had been promoted to SPD Red, and then Dino Thunder Yellow and Ninja Storm Blue. And that opening sequence where they all coming in like one by one, great, and like the big team up battle at the end, I still really love, because like it's only 7 minutes, that final battle at the end, but they cram a lot in it.
It's funny, I still have not watched Operation Overdrive, but I did watch that special, and it like did not click with me, and it's so awesome. I had forgot that Adam even came back for that. Gosh, it's crazy that was 15 years ago.
It doesn't feel like it.
No,
at all.
That seems like a closer season than like most. Like that seems like closer than RPM, which was definitely after the fact. So, golly, the passing of time, man.
It makes, I just feel like I'm gonna just turn into Thanos dust and like blow away in the wind. But I mean, it just shows so like how much longevity the show has had. Like to think that how many other children's shows are still running in 30 years down the line, like that's an incredible feat on its own. Never mind like having like all these conscious efforts to to remember and like venerate the past that the series has had.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the like Americans Doctor Who in terms of like longevity, and like there's like kind of a canon, but you can still like bring it back and like keep things moving forward. I don't know if it's as popular globally as that is, but I think that would probably be the closest comparison to anything else. Like, even though it kind of does get buried, there's always a kid getting into Power Rangers, and it's not their parents doing it. My nephew, like, just randomly one day had turned something on Netflix, and like suddenly he knew all about. Oh, I can't remember which series he started. This was before they took them all off, which thankfully they're all on YouTube now. But he just like started a random Power Rangers series one day on his own at like 3 years old, and then was coming and telling me all about everything about it. And that just happened. If you put this show in front of children, they're going to get into it, and they're going to do it on their own.
Absolutely.
And I think that's like its legacy. It's like, it's fun, it's bright, and it's going to hook you at the right time. And I'm lucky in that I can like still enjoy things like this without kind of being like maladjusted, or like I can still be a full-grown adult and then be like, yeah, but I also like watching Power Rangers, in the same way that like people watch B horror movies, and it's like, it's not like the highest form of art in the world, but I enjoy it and it's fun to me. And I appreciate that this show kind of has that staying power with seemingly a lot of people. Yeah.
It's like you said, like, even when I wasn't like actively paying attention to the series, like I would still see like at Halloween time, going around, there'd be little kids dressed as Power Rangers, and it's like, okay, to me, or it was always refreshing to see that still there. When the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, there's a Red Ranger balloon in it, and just to have like all these little things from like something I loved in my childhood, that's something I enjoyed into my adulthood, that it still has like this cultural relevance, whether it's big or small. To me, like that's very, I guess, rewarding to me. Like something I've enjoyed my whole life, it's still out there making memories and impact for all these new generations of kids.
Yeah, and anybody that like randomly tunes into this and is like, oh yeah, I like Power Rangers, and you can still like, you have the ability to still watch this stuff like within yourself without being like, well, that sucked. Go, it's all on YouTube now, so check out some of the other seasons if you never did. It's kind of like Pokemon. It didn't all like begin and end with like Generation 1. And there's actually some stuff of quality out there, like Time Force is amazing, RPM is amazing. If you never finished the whole original saga, you can watch all the way up through In Space. And like, yeah, it's varying quality, but In Space is probably one of the stronger seasons in like the whole 30-year run. And just have fun with it, and also don't take it so seriously for the people that do, because like you have a life outside of it. It's still good, and you can have a good time and like enjoy the things you enjoy without it like hurting you. And that's in all things with media. Like, as we're about to wrap up here, I would just like to say that like, don't let the thing that you like make you have a bad time because it didn't go exactly how you wanted. There's other stuff, and not everything about this special was like 100% perfect, but it was also really fun and kind of like rewarding to see after 30 years that like there was care put into it, and that people other than just like me and you, who like just kind of feels like we're just like out here sitting talking about these things while like the rest of the world is like doing something else. Like, they did stuff that we can enjoy, and they did stuff that other people would enjoy more, and it all worked out. And that's kind of the best you can ask for with things like this. And you can dislike something, but you don't have to let it ruin your lives. So,
well said. I would add. There's never going to be that perfect version, especially with something that people have carried, like their whole life. There's an imagined, crystallized version, and you can still have that perfect version in your head. You have to realize that your imagination and reality aren't always going to meet, and that's okay, because your version of this is not someone else's version. But you can still find that middle ground in the property that's in front of everybody. And I think there's something to enjoy in the series, like wherever you are on the range of Power Rangers fan. I mean, to me, it's really fun, heartfelt, and just like brings some new and old things to the series. And I think it's worth seeking out.
Yeah, I completely blinked there. You can edit that part out, or you can keep it in. It doesn't matter. What is it you do? The off mic bit where you start talking about
off mic. Cut this
off mic. We need to take that one out of there. No, but yeah, I hope everybody checks out the special because it was a lot of fun. I hope we can do this again about our like shared interests, because like I would love to have like a Kamen Rider conversation at some point, because I know, Lord knows, we've talked about it in the DMs enough. And I'll also feel like I've shaken off my podcast dust enough, because it's been a long time since I've done this. So, yeah, check out the special. Check out more Power Rangers stuff if you haven't. And right now, if you like Power Rangers, there is a large, like, thing to pull from, especially now out there. For the first time in years, between like Ultraman and Shout Factory getting some of the Kamen Rider series and stuff out there. And a lot of it is available for free on Tubi and YouTube. Check that stuff out if you like Power Rangers and wanted to see something different, because the Sentai series are available too. So if like this is your first time like venturing into that world, Tubi has like all of them that made it over to the West through Shout Factory, and you can watch a couple ads and then watch, where Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came from, and where it, like, you can see where the White Ranger came from, because those suits, other than that one, were never used here except for in a Super Mega Force episode, which is pretty interesting. So it's all out there.
Alien Rangers that just never mentioned. And yet, Tubi is an invaluable resource. If you're into Tokusatsu, they have so much like Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman on there. Like, that's something we talked about it before on the show. Tubi is something you should reach out for. Not a sponsor, but we would hope to be maybe one day.
Yeah, that.
But
I was gonna say they're with the way they host content, they could probably afford to if they're hosting some of that stuff, they could certainly send y'all a few bucks to promote for them.
I would live for that. AYCH Tubi collaboration. Let's make that happen.
Let's go. Let's do it. Tubi, are you listening?
Please listen, Tubi. AYCH now streaming on Tubi. But thank you, Chris, so much for joining me. Just great to finally talk in person, or in person, quote, remotely, and because I think this sort of just like wets my whistle for like more Power Rangers discussion, Sentai, Toku, whatever you want to talk about. I think there's plenty of room for that in the future. If you want to hear more Tokusatsu talk from AYCH, I have on hiatus for the moment, Ultraman Files, but with the new Ultraman series, Ultraman Blazer, starting this summer, you can expect that to come back. I have 4 full episodes discussing Ultraman in its different forms on the AYCH main channel, so go please check that out. That's been a lot of great response to that, and I'm excited to get back to it later this summer. And as we wrap up, Chris, if you would, please let everybody know where people can find you at.
If you want, I'm on Twitter at XWilkmanX. I just tweet bullshit, man. It's nothing crazy. So like, if you want to follow me for a little bit and then get annoyed by something I say and unfollow me, that's fine. I get it. Otherwise, I'm just kind of living. So, but I appreciate anybody listening to this. Hopefully we'll get to do it again sometime soon, and I'll talk about Power Rangers and stuff like this any day.
All right, sounds good. I definitely think we can make that happen. And for everyone else out there, be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever podcasts are found. This has been a special on AYCH Xtra. That is the third pillar in the AYCH network behind the main channel and Cajun Greatness, the Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. Follow us on wherever you're on socials, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Twitch, YouTube. We're on all that. Just search AYCH podcast. All you can hear, we're there. Follow us, like, rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars helps us out, keeps us visible, and just encourage us to make more content, because Lord knows we're very much in the business of just making more stuff right now. So there's a lot more on the horizon, so stay tuned for that. All right. Well, thank you again, Chris, for joining me, and then we'll be talking to you very soon.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all.